Hello and welcome to GD Live at PALS, to the subject GED Science, and today we will have a look at a couple of keywords that are going to be important to know about when you take the GED Science test, or in general the GED test. We will first have a look at some general important terms and then on some terms that are more science related and specifically for the science test important. So the first set of terms, some general terms, an important word in my opinion is to analyze, which is a verb, and it means to carefully examine the parts of something in order to understand it better. For example, when you have a crush on someone, it is normal to analyze everything they say for signs that they like you. So in science, or in the science exam, this word is fairly important when it comes to questions about a paragraph or a graph or some graphic representation, a table. The question might ask you to analyze certain parts of it. The second term, concept, a noun. A concept is a general idea. Babies have no concept of right or wrong. Again, in the science test, you will be confronted with certain concepts in science, which are, general ideas that are usually accepted in the scientific world. Consistent. Consistent has two meanings. The first meaning is unchanging, especially in a positive way. Second, in agreement with something. You might get fired if you aren't consistent about showing up for your work on time, or reality is not always consistent with our expectations. That's a quite important adjective, which will probably be in quite a lot of paragraphs in the science exam. Definitely can show up, so it's good to know what this word means. Some more important terms, this one definitely very important, data for our science exam. Data is information, especially facts or numbers that usually has been collected by a scientist, and the data is then used to represent the results of an experiment, for example. An important part of any scientific experiment is collecting data on the thing you are studying. To derive, a verb, to get from something else. When solving a math problem, you're asked to derive an answer from a given equation. Again, that word is quite likely to turn up in your GED Science test or in the math test, and the meaning we have just mentioned. Distribution, another very important term when it comes to data. The way something is spread over an area. The distribution of buildings is less dense in the countryside than in the city. Data is usually distributed as well. Data can be normally distributed, or we have other distributions. So it tells you how your data is spread out from the smallest to the largest value, and how it is spread in between these two. Evidence, a noun, is a sign that shows something is true. It's proof. Fossils are good evidence that dinosaurs once existed. And this is another very important term you should know when you go to your science test. Interpretation is an explanation of the meaning of something. The movie critic had a much more thoughtful interpretation of the film than I did. Significant, another important term, large enough to be noticed or have an effect. Getting enough sleep can have a significant effect on your energy and mood. In science, a significant result usually tells you that it is different enough from control group, for example, that it can be accepted as being different. If a result is not significant, then we can't usually statistically differentiated from our control group, and we have to either accept that there is no difference in our experiment, or we have to do the experiment again or try from a different angle to investigate if there really is a difference in what we are investigating compared to what's normal. Estimate, to make a rough judgment of something based on the information available, a best guess. It's approximately 400 miles from San Francisco to Los Angeles, so I estimate the drive will take about 6 hours. Or the drive only took 5 hours, so my estimate was close but not correct. Estimates can be very helpful in the GED Science test, especially when it comes to numerical answers to certain questions. Often the answers have very different values, so if you need to calculate something, often it is enough to do an estimate to get to the correct answer. Sometimes a question might ask you to estimate as well, so it's good to know what that means. Okay, let's have a look at some scientific terms and concepts. The cell theory, that's an important theory we should know about, is the principle that cells are the building blocks of all living things, from simple single-celled organisms up to complex multicellular organisms in which cells differentiate to perform different functions. So the cells are the basic building blocks of life. All living things are made out of cells, and cells only come from pre-existing cells. We definitely should have a general idea about what the cell theory is. Another important law that is more concerned about physical science is the law of conservation of energy. That law says that energy can only be converted into other types of energy and can't be created or destroyed. An ecosystem, here we have a definition that you should know, not by word, but you should have an idea what it is. An ecosystem is a community of plants, animals, and other living things that interact with one another and their physical environment. There is a whole screencast on that topic if you want to know more about what an ecosystem is. Just check out our YouTube channel and our database. Ecosystem disruption, anything that disrupts the balance of an ecosystem, anything that brings an ecosystem out of balance, such as the introduction of an invasive species, a plant or critter that didn't evolve as part of the ecosystem, that has been introduced, usually by human activity, to that ecosystem, and that will have a disrupting effect on the ecosystem. Evolution, the theory that explains the diversity of life on planet Earth and how it came about. There is as well a whole screencast on that topic if you want to know more about evolution. Genetics is the study of how physical characteristics are inherited from parents and passed on to their offspring, the passing on of genetic information from one generation to the next. That's what inheritance means. Homeostasis, another very important concept in science, especially for the GED Science test. Homeostasis is the tendency of a cell or organism to maintain a particular internal state in the midst of external changes, keeping things in our body in balance when the outside environment is changing. Our body constantly, for example, regulates our body temperature. It keeps it stable, although the outside temperature might vary all the time. Our body constantly keeps a stable blood glucose level, although sometimes it might increase after a big meal or decrease during exercise. Our body does the best to keep it stable. Pathogen. A pathogen is a disease-causing agent such as a virus or a bacterium, another important term. Again, for homeostasis and as well genetics or the topic inheritance, there are screencasts on their own. So if you're not sure, if you don't know much about these topics, again, check out our database, our YouTube channel. That's where you can learn more about these topics. Two other very important concepts and processes on which there are screencasts on their own are photosynthesis and respiration, two very important life processes in organisms. Photosynthesis is the process by which plants harness the sun's energy to convert water and carbon dioxide into carbohydrates, which means chemical energy that organisms that eat plants can use and that the plants themselves can use as well. How does an organism make use of that chemical energy stored in carbohydrates? How do we get that energy out of the carbohydrates? That's by the process of respiration, which is the process of breaking down nutrients from plants or other animals, from food, to produce energy for cells, or to release the energy from these molecules to provide the cell with energy it can use for any processes, to stay alive, to maintain homeostasis in the cell, to grow, to reproduce, and so on. And one more term, here a bit longer explanation. I think that is a quite important term where many people have a misconception about, and that is the term theory, or better, scientific theory. So in science, a theory is a coherent group of propositions formulated to explain a group of facts or phenomena in the natural world and repeatedly confirmed through experiment or observation. Well, that's a bit difficult definition, so let's have a look at the key facts about scientific theories. So in science, a theory is an explanation of the natural world that has been repeatedly tested and verified using the scientific methods by experiments, whereas in common usage, the word theory often means something very different. It could refer to a speculative guess. So the opposite of what a scientific theory is. A scientific theory is usually something widely accepted in the scientific world because it has been tested and confirmed so many times. Scientific theories have to be testable and falsifiable. That is, it's possible a theory might be disproven in the future. Examples of theories include the theory of relativity, the theory of evolution, the theory of gravity. It takes a long time for a scientific idea or hypothesis usually to become a theory. Because many scientists first will try to disprove this original idea that has been formulated, that hypothesis, but usually come to a supportive conclusion. So before a scientific hypothesis, an idea becomes a theory, many scientists will try to disprove it, but usually all of them come to a supportive conclusion, or most of them, more than 90%. And then over time, as a result of all these many experimental confirmations of that original hypothesis, it becomes a scientific theory, which is widely accepted amongst scientists. So it's not that a scientist just comes up and says, okay, this is now a scientific theory. No, it's another way around. A scientist comes up with a hypothesis, an idea that is usually revolutionary, and that many scientists over many years will try to falsify, but usually can't. They usually come to supportive conclusions, and then it crystallizes more or less as an emergent truth and becomes a theory. So one more time, a theory in science is widely accepted, whereas when we use the word in everyday life, it often means the exact opposite, something very speculative. All right, that was it on keywords in the GED Science test. I hope I could help you a little bit. Again, most of the science-related terms are the big topics. Again, if you need more help on these, have a look through our database on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe, hit the bell so you get all the information when new videos come up. And until then, see you in our next video. Have a good day.